Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back to Full Throttle Talk, your favorite weekly automotive podcast. We've got a really very special show for you today. We are reporting live from Germany with Paul Kramer as he goes on his world tour. If you guys have not been following Paul in particular on Auto Kennel's Instagram or over on Full Throttle Talk's Instagram, you must do so because Paul has got an amazing ability to make great videos, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So Paul, welcome to today's Full Throttle Talk. And let's get rolling. But before we do, Casey, let me just tee off by asking everyone, what's the coolest thing that they did since the last podcast in their automotive lives? Casey, you get to go first.
So at your request, I think maybe 2 podcasts ago, you were talking about how amazing your Spider RS was. And I will be honest, when I left Porsche was about when that car started to be delivered. And I've got a client that has a GT4 RS in birch green and a Spider RS in signal yellow. So yesterday I decided that it was the day that I was to find out why Tim loves these RS cars so much. First car I went out in, which is probably not the one I should have gone out in first, was the Spider. I did not take the top off. Should have, but I figured I needed a 2-person job to do that. And it was just me at the moment. Did my 10-mile loop, and it was amazing. It made all the right noises. The car was not through break-in, so I was making sure I was shifting under 5,500. It had about 300 miles on it. And honestly, for the weather that we had yesterday in Maryland, it was killer. Really got up. Got on cam, as you mentioned, could really hear when the car switched to the different ramps on the intake manifold, and it was just a wonderful experience. Secondly, I went out in a GT4 RS. Everybody knows that pretty much the cars are similar in terms of engines. Now, as you've pointed out, the suspension is different. I honestly didn't feel a whole lot of that spring rate difference in between the 2 cars, but perhaps it was because I wasn't pushing either of them pretty hard. But one thing that really took me out of the enjoyment of the GT4 RS was the fact that it was so loud. It is so loud in the cabin of that car. I was really short shifting, and I took the car out of PDK Sport really because, I've driven a lot of really loud cars, but being that it's all in cabin, it really took away from the driving experience, and it reminded me of how much I love the Spider. And next time I'm going to get a buddy to help me take the top off because, golly, that was an awesome car.
You can take the top off yourself. I can put it on. You know who actually showed me how to take it on and take it off and put it on fast was Matt Farah. He actually showed me how to do it. But the back window, did you have the back window in, the clip-in back window like the old TR3s, Casey?
Yeah, I left it in. I went full roof in. Next time I will take it off.
Yeah.
I remember when the 2011 Spiders came out and I was on whatever bulletin board back then. I think it was maybe Cayman Club or something like that, but I made like a video of me taking it off and put it up. And I'm assuming that, I have taken the top off of an RS Spider before, but I like, for at least, being that the car is as valuable as it is, if I have an extra hand for at least the first couple of times to get my aptitude up for taking it on and off, that's of course going to be my approach.
Well, so the difference between your approach and my approach was my focus was just getting it off as fast as possible and putting it back as fast as possible. And I'm sure you were following the instructions, which those don't work for me. So
Fair
I
point.
appreciate that. Yeah, but next time, make sure you do take the top off because it's an exhilarating experience. And the boominess that you heard in the GT4 RS, you were also hearing the Spider at the top on. Take it off, experience it, and it's, in my opinion, one of the most special modern cars made of any manufacturer, in Porsche in particular, because how many other actual RS Porsches are there that are also Spiders? Can you guys name one?
Just
Name
the
one.
other one that you own.
Actually, no, that's not an RS. Our Speedster's just Speedster. It's a GT3, basically. There aren't
Well,
any.
it's got the same engine.
Yeah, but an RS. I
Yeah.
mean, the rose jointed suspensions and all the rest of the bits and bobs that only come on RS cars. There aren't any. You'd have to go all the way back to 550, 718 RS, all those things, all the way back to the 50s and 60s. So, Dave,
So I was going to ask real quick about the Spider. Did I know the 11 and the new one, you could take the back window off, but leave the top on, right? Like a
yep,
bimini top. But I
yep.
don't think you could do that on the 16. Do you remember?
Well, the 16 wasn't, yeah, the 16 had the normal spider roof that is on the 4-liter car as well. That was all the
Okay.
same. And honestly, of the normal spiders, the 16 is probably my favorite. I think it's a really great sweet spot, even though I do love the 2011 cars. The engine just wasn't interesting enough.
So,
Yeah,
Dave, you're,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
just asking just because I had a 16 we sold and I couldn't take that off. And I just thought that was the one part that was the missed part. Sorry.
No,
What
no problem. Dave, so you're up next.
I
And
had it.
what's the
I
most,
had an
go ahead.
epic weekend. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry. Epic weekend driving in the North Carolina mountains. I'm going to do some more of that this coming weekend as well. I may bump into you, Tim. Um, we did a rally called Targa Carolina Recon, which we talked previously about a Kentucky-based rally I was going to do, but we had to pivot on that. Instead, had to move this rally to the little Switzerland area of North Carolina, and the roads are largely back at it. I mean, there's a couple of roads that go up and down to Little Switzerland. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area, but there is a road called 221 and 221A, which were both severely damaged during the hurricane. And 221A was impassable, but fortunately, that road, which is probably one of my favorite roads ever to drive aggressively in an air-cooled 911. So I had my 90 C4, 99 or 964, just a great time, great bunch of guys. We had a Bigfoot sighting. We were at the top of some mountain at a little mercantile gas station, and there we go. There we go. We had Bigfoot. He was out there having people come in and waving down people, and
Hold
we
on,
just
hold on, Dave. That's mean. Paul, wasn't that your high school, your prom date in high school?
I that was me. Wow.
Oh, that was you.
he's a world traveler for sure. Obviously, can make it to Germany and to the mountains of North Carolina. But it was a great weekend, great bunch of guys, and it's always my favorite thing to do is drive air cooled Porsches in a spirited manner. So maybe we'll talk more about rallies here in a little bit. Who knows?
We, so let me ask you a question. 220, have you driven on the tail of the dragon?
I have, but not. I was only a passenger. I was not driving the car. So, and I know you did that. So I want to hear about your weekend too. I think you just
Well,
did Dragon Rally or something.
no, no, not a rally. I'm not a big
No.
rally fan, so I'll be the only one of four of us if we talk about rallies today that don't like rallies. I'm not a big fan of them. I'm too much of a loner, frankly. But the tail of the dragon and the spider was exhilarating. You know, we were gone for 5 hours and we drove some other roads as well. It was just fantastic. You know, one of those lifetime experiences you'll never forget. And if you guys are ever thinking about going on an automotive related vacation or whatnot, definitely consider going through the tail of the dragon. The people are so freaking nice. The lane discipline is amazing. They just repaved the tail of the dragon. So if there's anybody that's slower than you, they'll pull off the side of the road. People will wave. I don't know how to, I've never driven on roads where people are so courteous. Nobody crosses the middle lane. When you stop, so I stopped off there's a couple little restaurants, if you want to call them that, at the top of the tail of the dragon. And this kid came up to me and he was a kid. He was 20. And I'm not going to use his name because he asked me not to. But he's now get this, guys, he's a Porsche mechanic at a Porsche dealership. He was so talented, he didn't have to go to even any of the trade schools, did not go to the Porsche training thing. When he walked into a dealership because he worked at a Porsche race shop. Okay. So he worked at an independent Porsche race shop, actually worked on the race cars, actually went to the track, the whole thing. He walks into a dealership. The dealership sees how skilled he is. Not only do they hire him, and remember, I don't know if you guys know the food chain for these guys to go get these jobs this way. They have to go to Tech or one of these other things. That costs 50 grand. And then Porsche will go and find the most talented mechanics that are graduating from Lyotech, and I forget the other one, and then they'll invite them to to go to another school, which I think it's free. It's Porsche does it. One on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and it's I think it's
PTAP.
6. Yeah, thank you. There you go. I
Yep.
should have asked Casey, of course. And I think, how long is it? 90 days or 6 months or something, Casey?
It's not my specialty, but I do know that when I worked at the dealership, we had a lot of really good guys come through the PTAP program.
Yep.
There was a guy still works at the dealer that I came from named Gavin, super smart guy, super driven. It's a great program, and
Well,
I'm excited to hear about the rest of your story.
one of the things that he said is that what happens is that after you graduate from PTAP or whatever it's called, is that you go enter into a draft system, which I did not know, where this is bonkers. You guys ever heard this before? So when you graduate from this thing, it's just like if you're trying to join in the NFL and you're in college, right? They'll draft your ass, and then you have to go to wherever the dealership is that basically bid for you. That's the way it works. I think you obviously can say no, but that's the way it works. So that's how good and how desirable these high-level Porsche techs are. At his Porsche store, which is a small one, I'd never heard of it before, they charge 331 an hour. You guys ever heard of that before?
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
you guys know what their entry-level pay per hour is for those mechanics? Do you guys know, even the graduates in those PTAC things, you know what those guys get paid per hour?
No.
What?
$37.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a night.
flat rate though.
Look at
It is
Dave.
flat rate.
Dave's
So
going, damn, Dave's going, my margins suck. I need to work on that.
yeah, well, definitely. But I hope you got this kid's number because
I did, but I
these
haven't
guys are
gotten,
all. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I haven't gotten to the good part. So the good part is he is such, and I'm not going to use his name because he thought he'd get fired if basically anyone knew it. A couple of things I already told you guys, but this one in particular, he was so talented that this Porsche store, who is a Manti dealer, or no, not a Manti dealer, but they install Manti kits for Manti, and you guys know about that relationship, I assume.
Yep.
Okay, so to be a Manti installer at the Porsche store, and remember this guy's 20. You have to be pretty much the top GT mechanic. So he was so talented. Now he could have been telling me a big story in retrospect, but I don't think he was. But the Porsche dealership put him in charge. Remember, he didn't graduate from any of these fancy schools. Put him in charge of the GT department and put him in charge of installing the Manti stuff. So I invited him to be on the podcast. I thought, well, this would be a great story. You know, we need to encourage the next generation, the generation after that. And he said they are not allowed to talk about Manti. Did you guys ever hear that before? Oh, other than to sell it. They're not allowed to talk about any of the specifications, any of the details, any of the suspension geometry. I mean, that was what he insinuated. But do you guys know what a Manti kit costs in case you're not allowed to play?
150 grand extra, 100 grand extra.
Okay, actually, Casey, you can play. What does it cost? What is a Manti installed on a GT3 RS?
We weren't a Manti dealer, so I can't really speak. But I think the parts were like 70, but that might not have included the different wheels. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Dave, do you know?
I don't.
100 grand installed.
Yeah.
So,
Paul, I'm sorry. The price is right. You went over. You are not allowed to move on to the next round.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Damn it.
Well, I watched Matt Armstrong did a video. I'm a big Matt Armstrong fan because I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he basically takes wrecked supercars and puts them back together. But the Manti kit, one thing that they do is they remove the rear window because and then they put that it's made of black carbon fiber or something like that. They replace the window. They put that shark thing up, which is, Paul, why don't you talk for a second so people can see you?
Okay, so there you go. Casey's talking about this piece, which we saw this while we're at the Nürburgring outside the track at a Italian restaurant for lunch. And the people we were with, one of my hosts who's from Southern California, but he lives now in Kelberg, which is outside of Nürburgring. He was just gushing over this. And with all the crazy cars there at the Nürburgring, people were driving and just losing their shit when they saw this car, because I guess there's not many of these Manti RSs out yet. Casey?
I mean, it is a very new thing. And the other thing they do is, of course, because they lose the rear window, they switch to one of my least favorite things, which is a camera-based rear view mirror. Have you guys ever used a car with a camera-based rear view mirror?
Just the
Not
Corvette.
used, seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Maserati MC20 has the worst backup camera on earth. But yeah, but it's super. I mean, what they shaved off like 6 or 7 seconds through geometry aero. I mean, that's why Porsche made the 51% investment in them a bunch of years ago. I mean, they've been absolutely dominant in European motorsports for, I don't know, as long as I've been alive.
You guys want to bet that's what the new GT2 RS is basically going to be, a Manti kit that comes factory from Porsche. I bet you it's going to be real damn similar to that.
I would
With
agree.
turbos, probably.
With turbos. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and 700 horsepower, whatever it's going to have, and gosh knows what. Do you guys think, Paul, I'm going to start with you. Looking at your picture behind you, clearly that car is going to be technologically a marvel. But do you guys think that car's pretty? I mean,
No.
beautiful.
No, I think it's just brutal. I mean, when you look at it, even with the wheel spats over here, on the rear wheels, I mean, it just looks like everything about that car. I should have taken pictures of the inside too, but everything about that car is meant for lap time. Which the Nürburgring, it's hilarious. All the cars we saw there look like the poser cars and coffee cars we see, but everyone there is seriously about lap time. All their cars look like they're made to do a lower lap time, and that is it.
Well, let's actually move to you and talk to you about your travel journal, because you're doing a trip that I've always wanted to do. I've never done before. And so let's start whatever order you want to go in. And thank you for sincerely, Paul, thank you for being on today's show. I know it's the end of the day over in Germany, but Paul's flipping around the pictures. If you guys aren't watching us on YouTube, you're kind of missing out, because he's kind of putting up as his background some of his background pictures. But Paul, the stage is yours.
Yeah. I mean, a lifelong trip. And just to really set the background, my dad and I started planning for this trip in 2017, and we both wanted to do it. We knew none of our spouses would care about going on this type of trip. It was strictly a trip for us, and we started saving money off of each car we sold into our Germany fund. And then we were planning on October of 2020. That didn't happen for obvious reasons. The world shut down, and then we basically had to move it out to 22 or 23. That didn't happen due to some other health stuff. And then in 24, we were set for October. I'd say April, May, I started planning the trip, and I quickly realized I needed to plan it sooner. For instance, getting factory tours. Like today, we're at the Mercedes Museum. We wanted to do a Porsche factory tour and a Mercedes factory tour, which we did the Mercedes one earlier today. We're doing Friday, the Porsche one. They were already booked up. Kind of like campsites, 6 months in advance to the date you go, they release it. And of course, the Nürburgring. And the best part is I have with me my dad, commonly referred to as the Ed. So my dad can explain, when I told him we're going to, when we're going to Germany and the route we're going to take, which is fly into Frankfurt, drive all the way down to Munich and hit everything in between. He was overly excited about doing the Nürburgring. And explain what you thought the Nürburgring was.
Uh-oh.
I thought it was basically like a track day at Willow Springs, where you just, you put your helmet on, you go out in your car and you drive around, as fast as you want or whatever you can do. And Paul gave me some videos to look at. And after I looked at the video, they said, that's not what I thought it was. And clearly it was not. I mean, we're going in, did you tell him about the ride on the day before?
No, I didn't tell him about the ride.
A friend of ours gave us a ride in his Cayenne Turbo, and it was exhilarating. It was a 2012 Turbo, Cayenne Turbo, and he was going well over 100 most of the time and passing everybody until the GT2s and GT3s and RSs and stuff came flying by, making us look like we were standing still. And it's and from the back seat, where I didn't have a mirror, I couldn't see the cars coming. All of a sudden, one goes right by.
He's right there in the back seat. I'll have to send Ann some pictures of that. But what the funny thing was, my dad said that, and it was naive. I said, "Oh no, Dad, we are renting a car. We're getting an instructor. We are doing this the right way, because it's far more difficult." And after we had the ride with my friend Chris, who's a U.S. citizen but expat, lives right outside the track. He's been there for 3 years, hundreds of laps, if not 1,000 laps on the track already. And after that quick lap, because we were going to do a ring taxi, my dad not only was like, I had no idea, but he also said, I don't want to drive tomorrow. So so the next day we rented this from our friends at NerbLife, which the instructor Hendrik is friends with my friend Chris, and that's how we met him. And it was just a regular GTI front wheel drive, DSC dual clutch transmission. Never went out of the paddles. I never stayed in the paddles. I just did automatic mode. And I did 5 laps, which was, you know, I don't know what I was doing, probably over 11 minutes a lap or more, but it was exhilarating and it was fun. And I'll be posting pictures. I've got an in-car video that I'll be posting. If you go to our Instagram, you'll see the in-car video in the Cayenne Turbo, which I posted a couple days ago. And ironically, he's chasing out his friend in a Mustang GT, which was bizarre to see a Mustang at the Nürburgring. And the thing about the Cayenne Turbo that was interesting, that was a US car. When he moved for work to Germany, he took his Cayenne with him. And so I should find the plate. He has this weird German plate that's the size of a California plate that fits in the space, but you had to replace the, you know, the turn signals and a bunch of other things. But it was wild. And it was so much harder. I knew it would be hard, but it was harder than I ever thought. I never played video games doing, you know, of the track. I've watched videos, but I've never pieced it all together. Have Casey or Dave, have you ever driven the Nürburgring?
Have not.
No,
Casey?
it's on my list. I have the client of mine that literally took delivery of a GT3 RS and went straight to the Nürburgring. So no, it's one of those bucket list items. We'll get there someday.
Paul, did you think that it was everything you thought it was going to be, or was it better, or was it, worse? What was it?
No, it was. It's if any of you've done track days, it's like that first time you've been to a track with a bunch of people you don't know, but then you throw in the different country. And, you know, in general, Germans love their rules and they stick to their rules, which is, for someone like me, I like that. You know, there's some semblance to it. But I know that, and the funny thing is, being Kramer, they all thought we were German, which maybe somewhere in the line we were German. But the thing about the Nürburgring was everyone there is so competent and fast. Like, I'll go out to a track I have never been to, and I'll very quickly be, you know, not the slowest. Here you are the slowest. I mean, even in my friend's Cayenne Turbo, and he rails that car. He was moving. A guy in a little Renault, it looked like a Econobox, just whizzed by. You'll see it in the video. And it's probably like a 2-liter motor, 130 horsepower. But the people there, they know how to drive, for sure.
But that's the thing when you watch those videos. Hell, even when I was on Tail of the Dragon and we were in our Spider RS and woo woo, I couldn't keep up with a guy that it had to be a late 80s E30, and I was trying to keep up with him. He was so much faster than me. And then Julie started making her birthing noises, so that was the end of that trip. You know, there's not. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was only going to say, yes. So it's the reason those guys over in Nürburgring are so fast is because they live there. They live around there. That's their hobby. That's their golf. They don't need iRacing and, you know, all the rest of it. They just go to the ring. And what folks don't understand, you know more than me, I've never been on it, but I've read about it, is it's pretty much opened up and you can buy a pass and you can go out. Just talk about that.
Yeah, so basically you go in for, I think weekdays is $30 a lap, 30 euros a lap, and weekends are 35. And it's just open. Like when we did our laps, it was open from 8 a.m. to 2:30 or 3:30 p.m. And you just wave your little card by like a ticket thing and it opens up and you go out there and they assume you know all the rules. And the funny thing is they have eyes everywhere. So I was watching the videos and one thing I learned was you see a car coming behind you, right turn signal, let them know that you know that they're coming behind and they come quick. I mean, there was in the video, hopefully you'll see an orange GT3 RS. I saw him a good mile back coming out of these sweeper and like that, he was on me, passing me. But there was one point we were behind. I did pass a Porsche. I passed one Porsche. He was probably a rookie also. And we were carrying finally towards the end of the 5th lap, decent speed. We came into the famous carousel and there's no more room to go and we're carrying a lot of speed and the instructor says stay up on the outside. Like I'm like, even that I had time to question. I'm like, whoa, like passing on the right is like the carnal sin. Like you do not pass on the right anywhere. I think people walking in the grocery stores don't pass on the right. Everyone's facing to the left. And
God bless them.
yeah, and as soon as we finally, oh, this is the fourth lap. We come in off the track and I want to take my jacket off. You know, we did 4 laps in a row, nonstop, you know, pay, go. I said, I got to take my jacket off. I was just dying of heat. And the corner worker, the person there at the gate, stopped us, starts to speak to me. She's like, Sprechen Sie Deutsch? I'm like, looks at the instructor and her in a very friendly, serious conversation. And I could see her doing this, a lot of wagging the finger. And basically I said, well, what is it what I think we did? She goes, oh yeah, they were not happy about that. I go,
About what?
about passing
That's
on the
not
outside
right.
carousel.
Oh, despite the
Even
fact that,
though-
yeah.
because we were carrying so much speed and that person was driving slow and they weren't pulling over. And so I can hear him saying something to the degree, well, that person wasn't pulling over and they're getting in the way. And she's like, I know, we're going to talk to them too. So
So the carousel, is that where it transfers back to like bricks and whatnot? And it's really
it's old concrete. It's
Right.
old
Oh, yeah.
concrete, and it's a pretty steep banking. And you know, and I mentioned to our friend Chris, who gave us the laps in his kayak, I'm like, why don't they fix it? I mean, the roads in Germany are nirvana. I mean, the best driving roads. No wonder all the cars look like they're from Stance Nation. Everything's lowered. Even the 18 wheelers look like they're slammed because the roads are so good. And then they have this, the most famous corner at the Nürburgring is the shittiest pavement. And he's like, no, it's culture, it's heritage. We'll never change that. I'm like, okay. So
If you guys have ever get an opportunity on a really good high-end race simulator on iRacing to be on the Nürburgring, you can actually feel in the steering wheel when you transfer from the nice pavement to the shitty pavement, and it is hard to hold the steering wheel. I cannot imagine what that's like in real life. Must be terrifying, honestly.
it was, and amazing because the instructor kept asking my dad, he's like, well, how you doing? Do you want to get out? You done?
Oh, and they have bags in the back too.
Oh no!
Air sickness bags. But you'll see in the pictures, I'll send you a blow up. You could see my dad. He's just sort of doing the lean in the middle, looking really serious. So, but
That is hilarious. There's barf
didn't
bags in the back.
Oh, and the rules that you get. I mean, if you do anything, if you go off the track a little bit, you have to pay for the corner workers and the cleanup crew and the everything, and they charge you for every single thing. You don't hit the berms, you don't do anything.
yeah.
But Ed, credit where credit is due. Were you good in the back seat? Did you need any sort of cleanup crew?
Oh, I was fine.
He was
Yeah,
great.
of course.
He was great. And I must have not been driving smooth enough because he stayed awake and attentive for all 5 laps.
And the instructor was fabulous.
Best
I mean,
instructor.
He was just calm and he used his hand signals and you knew when to slow down and when to turn. And I mean, he really, because there's like a zillion turns on that track and you just, unless you do it all the time, you don't know what's coming up next. They're all blind turns.
Yeah, he said 80% of the turns are blind.
Yeah.
It's come into them and you're just trying to remember, and there's only 75 or 78 turns to remember, and you're trying to figure out, when to get throttle, and he's telling you to do throttle, and what looks to be like a really early apex, and you're on full throttle, and you're thinking, what is on the other side of this hill? And then there's
Did you
times-
remember any of it? Paul, how much of it did you honestly remember after 5? I wouldn't have, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the whole thing is just a roller coaster ride, basically.
But like, and what's wild is when we were there on I fortunately planned the laps on Monday. Sunday, it was like cars and coffee. There's this parking lot, and it's only for people who, as they exit the track, they can hang out in this parking lot as long as they want. And then they go out of the parking lot, they go through a traffic circle that everyone goes through, and they can come back in. So when we met our friend Chris, he was just coming off the lap in his Cayenne. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, we just did a lap. And I go, why? He goes, oh, because that's the only way I can park in this good parking lot. And so he does a Nürburgring lap, parks in the parking lot, and it's like a cars and coffee. But like, when you go to cars and coffee and there's always that E30 M3 that's slammed to hell, and that it's just worthless on the street. Every car looks like that. Every car has a cage. Everyone there is like that. Their cars are set up to do a lap at that track, and that is it. and they trailer them there, they drive them there. And I mean, I went nuts with the stuff that, the little wagons that we never saw. Wagons tow everything. Caravans, race cars, doesn't matter. Everyone's got a small wagon.
Well, what was the coolest thing that you saw, Ed? What was the car? Because you're the one that gave Paul the car bug. What was the thing that you liked the best that you saw there so far?
In Germany or at the track?
How about at the track? We'll expand in a second.
Um, I mean, there wasn't one single thing, but what I noticed is all the cars that we see in California, or all the fancy ones, the really newest everything, they're never dirty. They just go to Cars and Coffee, and they don't want to put miles on them because it's going to depreciate them. And here at the track, those same cars are out there just flying around doing everything. It was invigorating to see them actually using those cars. And I mean, let me tell you, they really go. When you're going over 100 and they pass you like you're standing still, I mean, it's like amazing. And
Yeah.
then they're gone.
A brand new ST. It looked brand new, was out there doing laps. Oh, and by the way, no PPF. I didn't see PPF on any.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
But that's such a crazy difference in the culture, isn't it? That's extraordinary. Wow,
They
I
just
love
want to
it.
drive.
Yeah, I like that culture a hell of a lot better than ours because it is hard to basically, all the PPFing and all the rest of it. That is a little annoying, and I'm part and parcel to it too. So, but I don't like it, But if you ever want to get rid of something and move it along, and if it has rock chips or whatever, it immediately gets thrown into the trash heap as far as resale. So that's kind of funny. I wonder how that does reflect on like RSs and whatnot with rock chips and all the and miles in Germany. I wonder what the actual value retention regimen is, but that's for a different show perhaps.
Well, I can tell you, we saw very few 911s on the street, on the Autobahn or anything, but we saw a ton of 911s, including GT3s and GT3 RSs on the track at Nürburgring. It seems like when people buy that product, they buy it for how Porsche intended it to be used. Not
That's
like
incredible.
So
Did-
it was nice.
Did you see any manufacturer testing? Because I think Manti has an actual facility there, so you didn't see
They
anything.
they do have a facility, and I was hoping to see it. No, this weekend was this huge, we call it a hipster version of Woodstock. It's called Rock Am Ring, and it's literally like this big rock concert at the ring, but they're running laps simultaneously. So it's these two weird cultures that are trying to coexist, and apparently made it a lot of traffic. Now, the funny thing is, we had one day of traffic where we sat in it for 45 minutes getting out of the track on Monday. That's when all the rock concert goers were leaving. And by the way, they all camped. Everyone camped. Even the Airbnb we stayed at, it was our instructor. He had friends over. They're camping in tents in his backyard. Like we could see people at houses nearby with tents in the backyard because when they have friends over, the house is full. You can just sleep in a tent, and they do. I mean, imagine that at your home, wherever you guys live, where you have friends come in from out of town and they bring their tent, and you set them up in the backyard.
These people are much more hardcore than we are. That's the takeaway so far. They use their cars, they sleep on the ground. Yeah, exactly.
And they eat weird food.
Well, so I want to hear about the Porsche Museum in Germany. You guys have been there?
No, that's Friday. So
Okay.
far we did the Technic Museum, which is in Sinsheim, which is they've got a Concorde, and they got the Russian version of the Concorde, and they've got their version of Americana. You'll see it on our Instagram. I posted a reel this morning trying to capture all of it. And then today we did Mercedes Factory, and we're right now at the Mercedes Museum. They're closing in about a half hour or so, but we found a quiet area right next to an they call it the young timer. It's an E55, like a 2001 E55 AMG. And then there's a new S-Class behind us. But the factory tour was awesome. They were very clear that we could not have cameras, phones out. They literally have their own police force. Every S-Class in the world since the S-Class came out was built at that factory, which was an old military airport / Zeppelin launch site. It was pretty wild.
Is this going back to the 60s? Like, are you saying that?
No, 30s, 20s.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's really cool.
Mercedes started off making airplane motors.
Yep.
Well, they make cars, but their big manufacturing was airplane motors. And the main part of the factory was the old runway in the 20s for their airplanes that were taking off. And so there was 33,000 people that work at this factory. They're making, she couldn't tell, but she said in case there's spies in the group, apparently other manufacturers send people on their tourist factory tours to see what they can find out and take pictures. It's like a big deal. So we weren't allowed to go into the design studio. We weren't allowed to go into the paint area. Those were the two off. But we saw the assembly for them putting, it's funny. You could see the American cars going to the US. She goes, they're the most complicated and difficult cars with the most requirements that are not like any other country that we deliver to. So, and they take the longest to build.
Well, it's because the people that buy the cars in the US actually use them. The S classes that are sold for the rest of the world use as cabs. I mean,
Yes.
limos. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably
and,
why.
and we have the largest cup holders of any Mercedes they make from any other country. And she was being very serious, which I was
I
like,
bet. No smile on
Alright.
her face when she said it. The Americans have the largest big gulps. Was she looking at either one of you guys when she was saying that? And a
No.
critical eye? No.
no, she's just looking at my belly.
She just went through a whole list of the things that are different on US cars. And I mean, it was pretty impressive.
But yeah, watching them put an entire dash in a Mercedes in less than 30 seconds with two screens.
Wow. I
This-
would love to have seen that. That
Yeah,
must be exceptional.
Yeah, just this big arm grabs a whole dash with all the CAN bus and all the wiring connected. It goes in through the driver door, and then another arm pushes it up, and then one guy on each side with a screwdriver. Oh, and these screwdrivers, they're wireless screwdrivers that are also cordless screwdrivers that are Wi-Fi connected. So each car, it knows that car is going to this market and the torque specs for that screw should be for this. And it tracks when that screw was put in by what employee on what day down to the second. I mean,
That's incredible. Honestly, that's phenomenal.
So she was talking about when Princess Di was killed. They went through all the records to find out, and they've been doing this for a while. It was, a lot of times it was paper, but they went back to show that every bolt put together on that car was properly done, and Mercedes was not at fault. And then obviously later they found out she wasn't wearing a seatbelt and the driver was drunk, but other than that, no problem.
Yeah. And concrete turns out not a thing you want to drive into, but all that aside. Well, that's incredible. So what other highlights so far from your trip? I know you've been doing a lot of driving on the Autobahn too. And Ed, he did say you passed out, you fell asleep in the back of that one.
He fell asleep in the Autobahn. And I got to tell you that so far, I mean, the Nürburgring was great, but like the Nürburgring, I knew at Monday at this time I was going to be on it. So like I was psyching myself out. I was getting excited for it. But like the Autobahn, I kind of pictured we would have to get off the main road and go to this thing like kind of like when you're in Mexico and you go to the toll road, like a special thing. So I get the rental car, get lost, kind of zip around. We get on the freeway. We just put in literally on Waze or Google Maps to go to where we're going for the night. The first night was towards the Nürburgring. And on the dash, the icon that we all know, which is the round circle with the 3 lines going through, unlimited speed, it pops up on the dash and the unlimited speed. And like, I'm not expecting it. I'm like, Dad, this is Autobahn. And I just floor it. And it's got winter tires. I tried everything with the rental place to get a car without winter tires. She goes, no, winter tires come off next month. Like they put literally winter tires for winter, and they have different wheels with summer tires that start in end of June. So, which she goes, well, the winter tires are limited to 245 kph, which is, I don't know, 150 miles an hour, 100.
Did you find out? I assume you did.
Yep, I got to 245.
Good boy.
And it just stopped. The governor just kicked in.
Oh,
So
that's really interesting. So was it governed because of the winter tires, or was it governed because it was governed?
the other thing I noticed was as I'm on the freeway, if I saw a sign, so you're going, unlimited. So I'm going 220. Most of the time when it was unlimited, I was between 210 and 240 kilometers per hour. And some of them are turns. And I'm sitting there going, man, they just let anyone do this. And then, and the people in the middle lane are going maybe 100 kilometers to 130, probably 130 kilometers. So the first speed differential, it'll say 130. So I'll lift my foot off the gas and the car is braking down to 130. And I don't have the adaptive cruise control on. It's weird. I think the modern cars are somehow calibrated. There must be cameras somewhere that send a signal, because unless you keep your foot on the throttle, it's actually going to start slowing down. Now, I don't know how far it gets, because then I'm adding brake and slowing it down, because typically it's 130, 100. It might even be 60. And then I'll be sitting there. My dad's, I look over and he's half asleep. And then I go, Autobahn, and I just slam the I just start taking off. I mean,
That's
it is like a video game. It is so unreal, and it was so unexpected. I mean, today we did museums, but I can't wait. Tomorrow we're driving through the Black Forest, and honestly, I
oh.
just can't wait to get back on the Autobahn.
Well, it's so cool on the GPS, the stupid unlimited speed, little sign shows up. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that's incredible. We need to get that in the US.
Oh,
So
yeah.
show them, if you can, for those watching on YouTube, the picture of the car you guys had as your rental car, or you're using as your rental, because it's not that one and behind you now.
No, that would be nice. That's one of two Mercedes SLR coupes, which the other one was sold for
100 million?
130
130 million. It was for
130 million. Yeah. Now that would be pretty cool if that were your rental car, but no.
Yeah. I don't know if
There it is. You got it.
There we go.
So is that a 4 or a 6? I can't tell.
It is, there we go. It is an A6. Oops, there we go. It's an A6 S, let's see, A6 S line Avant. It's called an A650. And it's probably 200, and it's a plug-in hybrid, which we're finally figured out at the Mercedes Museum. We're plugging in the hybrid so we can get some more power, because apparently the rental place says hybrid isn't just range, it gives you more power. And I want more power.
Welcome to 2025, Paul. Welcome.
I know. I've
Welcome,
never done
welcome to modern cars.
Yeah. I've never done a plug-in hybrid, but but it's the funny thing is, on the freeway, on the Autobahn, everything there everything's black, maybe a few silver, mostly black wagons, mid-size and small, compact wagons. No SUVs, very few SUVs. We'll see a BMW like X5 every once in a while. I haven't seen really any Mercedes, haven't seen many AMGs. The Mercedes are like C230s or E220s, E200s, diesels. But we're definitely moving faster. I don't think anyone's passed me on the Autobahn. I think I've pretty much passed everyone.
You can't let somebody pass you. I mean, that would just be sinful, especially on your snow tires. And by the way, I hope that the Utes are going to come out of fashion in the United States, because the reality of it is, people who are thinking that a sport utility vehicle has more utility to it than a really nicely done wagon are crazy.
Yeah, no, I would love if they got rid of the sport utilities. Apparently, we're the country that consumes all the sport utilities.
What's the reason they're made there? I mean, Mercedes makes theirs in Alabama. BMW makes theirs in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I mean, you guys know. And by the way, listeners or viewers, if you've never been to a place where they actually make cars, mass-produced cars, and it doesn't matter if it's Corvette or GM or any of the rest of it, but the European ones, you should go to the European one, and then you should go to a domestic manufacturer one, and just with your own eyes, just see the differences. It's not just the machines, but it's the environment too. I'll never forget when we went to Spartanburg, and on the same trip, we also went to watch the Corvettes being made. And the Corvette, now this was, generations ago, but the Corvette factory was, I'm not going to cast aspersions, but it was like, I mean, you wouldn't have believed it after having been to the BMW one. The BMW was so clean, so organized, and this is the United States. So everyone was dressed really nice, so polite at the whole thing. And when you're in the Corvette thing, each of the guys had these little stations, and they had decorated them up pictures, and you occasionally hear some music in the background, go to another station, there's other music, completely different environment. Again, I'm not sure if it's still like that, but definitely go and see cars being made. It's extraordinary. And even if you don't like manufacturing, just seeing that happen at scale is amazing.
And it's the first time my dad or myself had ever been to a manufacturing facility. And I know that it was amazing. It was probably one of the coolest tours. The frustrating thing is I'm guessing the same was Ferrari when you've been there. They don't let you use cameras for anything.
They don't. But Ferrari, I promise you, when the Spartanburg facility where they make BMWs, and Porsche does this for 911s too, which I'm looking forward to hearing you guys talk about it, is it's multi-layer. Have you guys ever been to the Spartanburg factory for BMW, either one of Casey or Dave? So it's multi-level. So you walk in, and I'm not exaggerating. You're gonna look up, and it's this big ass building, and you're gonna see like layer cake of BMWs. The assembly line is not on just horizontal. It goes up and around, and you see these cars in different. It is incredible, just
Yeah.
like you cannot even believe. And we had a Z3 M coupe. This is what we drove there. And
Oh,
just to
nice.
see all these M coupes all lined up, just going up into the sky was, I don't know, I'll never forget it, obviously. All right. So any other things from your highlights
Oh,
reel, sir?
I think it's going through the Mercedes factory tour. She's telling us how they've gone through such great lengths to protect the employees. They get special ventilation systems and all this stuff. And then while we're there, every 90 minutes, they have a 15-minute break. And literally we're there. It's like the Flintstones. The horn goes off. The lines come to a stop. Everyone just boogies out the door to go smoke.
All right, so
So,
I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna tell you guys something funny. So we were in Lamborghini, we've been there twice, and so the first time we thought maybe it was an anomaly, and the second time we knew that's what they did. They drink at lunch wine. Okay, there I said it. So when you're buying a Lamborghini, you have to, if it's an after lunch, you know how normally it's a Monday, Friday car, you got to be kind of dubious about. It's an
Yeah.
after lunch car when you're at Lamborghini, and it's not a lot of wine, but it is red wine, and they're having it at lunch. So there you go.
And
so
the
Paul,
amazing
oh,
thing was we're looking at this line of hundreds of cars, not one with color. They're all black,
That's
silver,
crazy.
gray, white. And you'll see, I posted something on my Instagram stories. We're at the delivery center, kind of like Porsche delivery experience. You can go to, get it delivered at the factory or
Said
delivery center.
10% of the cars.
Yeah, it said 10%. I don't believe it. We saw none. And in the delivery center of maybe 50 cars there being delivered that day, one was a color, one was red. It was an AMG wagon that was red. And
Do you
that was
think
it.
they were batching them though, Paul? Do you think you were just there?
We asked her if they batch them for countries, they batch for colors. She goes, nope, they just go out there. The computer now knows which car is in which spot and which equipment it gets. She goes, every single car is different because they're all special ordered, whether the dealer ordered something or it's a country. She goes, there's not any cars that are the same at any time. And it doesn't matter
And
which line.
on the line, they're different cars. They'll have a CLK and then a
You'll see like
Ah,
a GLC, an E-Class, another small SUV, and they're all like one after another, and they're different countries. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I think yes, one line holds a certain thing because they all use the same dash or a similar size dash to fit on the equipment. But other than that, no, there wasn't really any rhyme or reason to what they were running in at a certain time. And then today, we're here at the Mercedes Museum, which have any of you guys been out here to the Mercedes Museum?
no.
I've been to the one in Southern California, but it's tiny.
Yeah, I thought leaving 4 hours for this would be enough. It wasn't.
Let me tell the viewers. So if you're listening, he's now showing more pictures from his experience, him and Ed. But if you're on YouTube, make sure you're looking at, obviously watching these pictures. So that's a GTR, no?
Yeah, CLK GTR. I think Mika Hakkinen drove this one, and I think this was one that won Le Mans or one of the big races. I forget which one. There was a whole section of race car stuff, which on my Instagram stories, I posted a lot of it. Um, an Ayrton Senna car was in there, an F1 car. I forgot what else was in there. But then, the SLR we were just talking about. I mean, I've seen replicas. I've never seen one in person, and it's just sitting there on display. And by the way, the museum is built. They didn't say anything about it, but it feels like my dad had mentioned, it was inspired by the Guggenheim Museum because you take it up to the 7th floor and then you just do this spiral down, and it goes the complete history from the first car, which by the way, I posted pictures of the oldest Mercedes-Benz in existence, which was from 1902. It's a Mercedes Simplex 40 PS, which I think 40 PS couldn't have been horsepower because nothing was making that kind of horsepower in 1902. But it was original paint, wood wheels. It was insane. And to have 23-year-old Mercedes-Benz look pretty unrestored sitting there in the museum.
Didn't Daimler make the first Mercedes? Am I remembering that correctly, guys?
Daimler did. Yeah, it's a 3-wheel car, and it was the one that you see.
No, I meant to say first car. Yeah, not first Mercedes, but first car. Yeah. Yeah.
First car. This was the first Mercedes, the oldest Mercedes in existence, because you remember Daimler, one of his big clients, who was an Austrian guy, he kept pushing Mercedes to make faster cars and make it a higher class car, and basically pushed Mercedes to be who they were today. And they built special cars for him, and he named him after his daughter Mercedes, and hence the name sort of stayed with the brand. But yeah, the tour was amazing.
I
And
see
then
you're looking over your shoulder because I know you said you had a half hour. You
yeah,
must get out. The store is closing.
it's yeah, the Germans are very funny with their regiment, but I appreciate it because the yeah, the
You must leave.
no, they haven't. I think I feel like I'm not sure. What is that? What does nerf for personnel staff mean? What does nerf?
It means get the hell out unless
No.
you're staff.
So tomorrow, so Friday, like I said, is Porsche. So hopefully next Wednesday, by the way, we're here in Germany for a total of 2 weeks. We're leaving on the 21st. So next week, this Friday is Germany. Porsche. Tomorrow night, we're meeting with the FLB group, which I'm going to be meeting with my friend Tony Hatter. If you know who Tony Hatter is, Tony Hatter designed the 993, the 997, the 981 Cayman, the GT4. I've been fortunate enough to sell him cars over the years, him and Grant Larson. Grant Larson's not here. He's now with Roof, but he's in the US. So we're going to be Friday Porsche tour, Thursday night having a cocktail thing with the FLB group, which is Porsche employees that are into vintage hot rod 911s.
Wow.
One gathering. We're going to the FLB
Yeah.
clubhouse. So I'm hoping to see cool stuff Thursday night. They'll let me take pictures. Friday, we have the factory tour in the morning, and then my friend Torsten, who I've known since he was with Mercedes in the late 90s, he's taking over Grant Larson's job. So he's in charge of special projects. Like he did all the liveries you see on the heritage packages. He did the liveries in the 918. He does most of the, in fact, the reason the 992 had a tachometer on the 992.1 was because of Torsten. He fought and fought. And I remember he told me, if you want to get a new Porsche with a tach, 992.1 is it. Other than that, 992.2 is going to be no more tach. And he goes, I fought as hard as I could, and it wasn't going to happen. And we're after lunch, he's going to take us on a special museum tour. He's trying to get us into the vault. He's like, I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see. He said he'll show us something special. And then I think Monday is Roof. And then the next week we'll be going to Austria. So
Wow.
after Roof, we're going to be doing Austria and the Alps. But tomorrow we were going to rent a Porsche. Thank you, Casey, for the recommendation. But I think that if we're going to rent, and I don't like convertibles, but if we're going to rent something, it's going to be a cabriolet.
In Austria for sure, right? I mean, that's not what you're thinking.
We'll see. We're going to rent something tomorrow because tomorrow we're going to spend all day driving through the Black Forest.
Oh man, I'm
And we're
so
gonna do
jealous, Paul.
what you were talking about. There's still a chance. It just depends on what the problem is. Everything at the museum, the only thing we can get is a 911 coupe. And if we're going to do it, I would love to do it in an open car, a cabriolet, and the weather's been great. So we'll see. But either way, we're driving the Black Forest tomorrow because we're tired of walking.
What are you looking forward to the most the rest of your trip? Just hanging out with your dad, obviously, is wonderful. Other than that, what are you looking forward to the most?
More Autobahn, please. I I love the Autobahn.
Poor Ed.
Yeah, but I do want to, so kind of one of the other things I'm looking to do is Ferdy Porsche, who's the great grandson of Ferry Porsche. He's about 30. He's an architect, but he's kind of gotten the car bug, and he opened up Fat Mankai, which is like cars and coffee at the top of the Glocker Pass in Austria. And
How does that translate? What does fat mankind translate to in English?
So
fat is so one of my favorite 962 is the 94 Le Mans winner, which is the one that says fat on the front of it. Fat was basically, if I'm not mistaken, it's like DHL, it was a transportation company.
Oh,
So I'm super obsessed with that livery. That was the car that it won Le Mans. The second place car was the Sunoco, the Shell car, the Dower 962. And that car was at Rennsport, which was awesome. But I guess Ferdy took over the brand rather recently, and they do that ice race in Austria, and I think they did one a couple of years ago out in Aspen or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's made it into basically a big brand now, which is super rad.
Yep. And so he has a Cars and Coffee, like a little coffee shop at the top of the Glocker Pass. And on not this Friday, but the following Friday is a big Porsche thing up there. And so Torsten told me about it. And he says, if there's going to be really cool vintage Porsche factory race cars, that's where they'll be on Friday, going up the Glocker Pass. So we have a room on the other side of it for Thursday night, and hopefully we'll see some cool cars. Maybe we'll go to Gamund. I'm not sure, but
Well, just out of curiosity from a business perspective, you're meeting all these Porsche guys, and because you're kind of a Porsche insider too in your own way, you and Ed, of course. How are you making connections that might result in some of this forbidden fruit type, merch making its way to Southern California and your Porsche store?
I I doubt it.
The IRS
I
is
haven't thought about
listening,
the business
Paul.
aspect.
No. I mean, obviously if a car's 25 years or older, you can bring it in. And, those types of, when you get into these old vintage things, like evidently he's going to see on Friday, you're going to trip over people that probably would never even have thought of selling their car, outside of Germany, but something like that in Southern California would be worth incredible money.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'd love to do is we've got a special tour set up for Roof, and Roof has been my dream. And I think you mentioned Tim, I think knew Nina, who had already talked to.
I didn't know her. I knew somebody that Alias is friends with, who is, long story short, basically, I just dropped her a quick email and mentioned that you were coming. And evidently you guys had already laid the groundwork for your tour, but she was so gracious, such wonderful, sweet, amazing people over at Roof. And dude, the experience you're going to have, I did tell you that she did say in the email to me that you're going to be going on a run in a Roof on, okay, so okay,
I'm
get
looking
ready.
forward to it. I
Yeah.
would say that is one of the highlights. I mean, it's like your favorite record album, picking the song you like the most. I mean, like everything that we have coming up is awesome. Everything.
And everything we've done
Everything done so far is awesome. The
Well,
only
you
thing,
guys have planned it really well too. It sounds like you guys have really planned. You know what you should do, just for what it's worth, is you should actually, write your itinerary out and all your contacts and whatnot and share it socially. I would certainly appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. And all the things not to do.
Yeah.
We've learned technology wise not to do. But no, it's been awesome, and it's hard to believe. I mean, it's funny. Every morning we wake up, my dad opens up the drapes to the hotel or the Airbnb, and he's like, "Can you believe we're in Germany? Can you believe we're in Germany?" I mean, you gotta understand, neither of us have been to Europe. Neither of us have been out of the hemisphere. Like, we don't travel at all. I would love to, but my mom is not a good traveler. My wife doesn't travel. So we do these little rallies, and that's the extent of our vacation, which is fun. But when everyone's like, "Oh, all you do is rally," I'm like, that is my work and my fun, and I don't take any other vacations. In fact, what did you say? This is the first 2-week vacation we've taken in 25 years?
Yeah.
Well, you guys are doing it right. The airlines you guys chose, holy crap. You think Delta first class or business class kicks ass? No way, bro. And you guys weren't even from the seats. It looks like you guys weren't even in first class. You're like,
No, we were business class.
Yeah,
And
but it was, wow.
that was all his doing, and I'm so glad we used all of our Amex points we've been saving for
But
7 years.
it's totally worth it, isn't it? I mean, honestly, the thing that sucks about traveling is that the arriving is great. The traveling sucks, but when you really, it costs an extraordinary amount of money, but flying first class, especially European planes, is totally worth it.
It was be able to lay completely horizontal. And
Yeah. Well, and the food,
food was not good.
you didn't like, well, I was going to ask you about that. So what do you guys think about the German, just the culture and the food, since you've never traveled before? What's that experience like for you guys?
I'm gluten-free. I have celiac, so I can't eat. So the problem is German food. Like today for lunch, we went to this restaurant, and the Germans are great because they put these codes for, it's a national law that all restaurants have to have these codes for allergens. And so I looked through, and literally everything on the menu was I couldn't eat except for a weird burrata salad, which was their anything gluten-free is their poor attempt to try to be Italian. Strangely. So my dad, though, he had a very German dish today for lunch. It was like lentils and spatzel and those egg noodles, was it? And Wiener Schnitzel, or I don't know what it was.
And a warm beer, of course.
I can't drink the beer. I forced him to have a beer, and it was pretty good.
It was good beer.
It was good beer. I'm like, "Dad, you got to drink the beer. Don't get."
Yeah, no, the
He's
beer.
like, "Do you think they have tequila?" I'm like, "Of course they don't have tequila. They have beer. The beer."
Oh man, Ed's cool. He's wanting the tequila. He's riding on the Autobahn. He's going to
Sleeping.
Nürburgring. He's not barfing in the bark bags. He is the best
No,
traveler ever.
he is. He is. He's very tolerant. He's very tolerant. He's, you know,
Do you guys have any questions for him as he proceeds on his sojourn, Casey or Dave?
I just wanted to know whether or not, Paul, you're doing all of your own video, right? All the stuff you're just shooting
yeah,
on your phone, and
yes.
you do a hell of a job editing it together. I have no idea how
Oh,
you got the time to do it, but all the reels and stuff you're doing look great. So, and
oh,
it's really
thank you.
wonderful.
And selfishly, I do it more for me because then, I'm taking copies of it, sending it to our family so they can see it. So instead of, hey, sit down and watch my 60 slideshow carousel of these horrible pictures, I could send a 30-second or a 1-minute video to my family, and they go, oh, and we're sending a lot of goofy pictures as well. But basically, I know that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, to be able to look back and see the museums we saw, and the 1 minute for a day of stuff is about as much as you can take. We just got the in-car video from the Nürburgring, and I'm dying to post some of that, but I'm not going to post all 10, 11, 12 minutes, however long it took.
You should. I'd watch it. And Ed,
No,
does Ed know how many pictures you're posting of him sleeping?
he's not happy about it. Do you?
Even if I don't sleep, if I put my head down, he's taking a picture.
Oh yeah.
No, I need to
Well,
learn. Trust me, as
you-
I've gotten
Did
older,
you
I need
guys
to
see
look.
it like a few
Yeah,
minutes
yeah.
ago while we're waiting? He's snoozing. Right? Did you saw him?
I
He's
did.
like
I did.
he's like a doctor. He needs to be prepared.
He's so good
Exactly.
he's so good at finding those little moments. I was going to show you the short video so we stopped at the Mercedes place, and after we were done with the tour and stuff, my dad decided we're resting, kind of getting ready for the next part. And I don't know if you could see this.
It's not letting us do it. It's too
Oh,
far, too close. Yeah.
Oh,
It'll be in a highlights reel on Instagram. How about that? You know what? You should just do a reel of Ed sleeping of different places.
I
Oh,
did
you
for Father's Day. It was a Father's Day reel.
Paul, do you have a endpoint tomorrow for your ride through the Black Forest?
Well, tonight we're staying somewhere near Zuffenhausen, actually in Stuttgart, near the museum. So, I figured we'll end back up through there, or somewhere in Stuttgart. So Porsche makes an app, which I think they're trying to get to work in the US, but it doesn't work that well. I'm not sure if you've used it. It's called, like Roads. Have you seen that? Or Casey, were you working at Porsche when they unleashed that?
So it was never really pushed here. They did a little bit of marketing, but I've got a buddy in Northern California that uses it a lot. I've got a good place to kind of send you guys to. I've sent you guys the group, the pictures of us with the big fish and that kind of stuff when we were in that C4S. I've got a good spot for you to end up at that I'll send you a link to it.
Perfect.
I want you, if I've never been to the Mercedes factory, but what you explained a lot. I've been to the Porsche factory, I think 3 or 4 times now, and it sounds very similar. They also don't allow phones in there. I think you can leave them in your pocket, but you definitely can't take them out. What they always told me is that had to do with, you'll see these little Bluetooth carts driving around on little lines. They say that your phone might impact the way that those move. I don't know if that's the case, but
No.
a funny thing. Yeah, go ahead.
They were at Mercedes. They were pretty clear that they're not legal because they don't know if you're an employee, a spy from another company. That was it.
Fair. So one thing that I found really humorous, and when we would work at a car dealership and people would trade cars in, one of the first thing you would do is make sure that the car wasn't a smoker's car, right? So at the Porsche factory, like how you said that they blow a whistle and everybody leaves, they have smoking closets on the floor where they build 911s, and you can kind of smell a little bit of it. So I took away from that literally every 911 and 2-door car produced in Stuttgart has been smoked in.
And considering the massive amount of people that went out the Mercedes break to go smoke outside, I feel like the same as well.
Yeah,
You know,
and
maybe if
yeah,
you're in the carpet installation part or the headliner, you're not allowed to smoke.
right.
Are you a smoker?
But
No, great.
but isn't that an interesting observation? It's like in the United States, when you smoke, you have like a sort of Damocles hanging over you. But in Europe, every freaking buddy smokes. It is
Yeah.
extraordinary, actually, the difference in cultures.
Cigarette machines everywhere, like the 70s. Remember the 70s in
Yeah.
America? You'd have those things you'd pull, and they've got those everywhere, in lobbies and so forth. So
And they don't know how to refrigerate their beers. The other thing you'll notice.
at lunch today we got cold water, and we had cold water yesterday at dinner and today at lunch, which was like a blessing. The guy's like, "Here, the water's cold. Be careful. It's very cold. Don't hurt yourself." I'm like,
Yeah, but
"Oh,
when
drink
you when
slowly,
you
drink slowly."
when you go to the they changed the line since the last time I was there at Porsche because well you'll see it in Taycan if they take you through the Taycan line, which electric cars, it's not as glamorous as
It's
a
very quiet.
but it's very cool because they made it flexible. And now that they're going to start introducing EV on the two-door production line, they're making that flexible as well. So I mean, I know that you won't be able to see the comparisons, but if that would allow them to basically slow down or stop portions of the line momentarily if they need to make an adjustment, which when I was there on the two-door line, everything moves seamlessly. And that was that, what was it, that Kaizen last minute production thing that Wendell and Wiedeking put in a bunch of years ago, where basically
Yeah, from
that
Toyota.
dashboard that you were talking about shows up. It's a left-hand drive dashboard. It's got yellow stitching. It's got blue gauges. It goes in the car. It shows up 30 seconds before it needs to go in. And as you said, every one of those things reads the exact torques. So I'm really stoked to hear how you compare the two because I haven't seen Mercedes before.
I was going to ask, I love that question, Casey, because I was going to ask him the same thing, but I was going to ask it more along the lines of, because I imagine the manufacturing aspects are similar. I want to know about the cultural differences. I want to
Yeah.
know what you feel, because Porsche in the United States is revered as the pinnacle brand to work at. Certainly, Casey, you can attest to that more than
Yeah,
anybody, I
they're
think.
hard to beat it.
Yeah, I mean, but in the United States, if you're in the Porsche, if you're in the car world to work at a Porsche store, whether it's sweeping the floors or being a salesperson, is there any more prestigious job if you want to be in that into the automotive world?
Well, yeah, and I'll talk to my friend Torsten because when I met him, he went to design school in Stuttgart, got a job with Mercedes, and from the day I met him, which he'd already been a year out of school, he was like, "I want to work for Porsche." Like that was his lifelong dream. And in 2004, he got a job with Porsche, and he left Southern California to come back here. And I remember talking to him over the years, and he had said stuff that, a lot of people don't make it at Porsche in terms of the design side or any of the long lifers. It was like you had to like give your blood. You had to be like this ultra committed person to stay at Porsche. And if you look at the type of people that are there, they've been there, especially the key players, they've been there a long time, like the Tony Hatters, the Grant Larsons, the Andy Pruningers, all of these executives who are, a big deal in the company. CEOs don't last as long as some of the other employees for the company. And if you don't get the culture, you're out. And I think Mercedes is the same way. She made it sound like people work. They had over 70 buses that were Mercedes buses that pick up employees from up to 100 kilometers away to bring them to work. And those
Wow.
buses only take people to work and home. That's it. So when we went by, there's 70 buses, big, type buses, fancy buses. Of course, all Mercedes buses just waiting there to the employees to get off and take them home. So I think it's one of those lifelong, we don't have lifelong jobs in Southern California or the US anymore. I think they have them here.
My perception, and it might be wrong, and to Casey's question, and I'm really curious if you can even perceive this, is there actually a cult? Is Porsche seen as, even amongst the Germans, is Porsche like, the thing that all of them, like everyone wants to race for wants to race for Ferrari, even if Ferrari's not, the top tier team,
Right.
everyone wants to, is it that how Porsche is seen in Germany? I don't know. You'll have to let us know.
I will.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have a connection in the Austrian Alps next Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you do, when you're over at Roof, do kind of look behind the scenes because my German friend was telling me that if you kind of just poke around a little bit, they do restorations on some of the older roofs there. And they also do restorations on non-roofs too. So you can see some really exceptional things going on.
Well, supposedly the very first 911, the one that Jerry Seinfeld had, Roof restored that. You know,
Yeah.
there was a whole kerfuffle in terms of it getting destroyed and resurrected, but Roof does restore it. And actually, that was one of the things, besides getting to drive in, go for a ride in a Roof car on the Autobahn, is to see some of the restoration, because I think that is really a thing that they do pride themselves on. So we'll see, hopefully see some classic cars, and maybe they'll let me take some pictures.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And that's a totally different environment. Yeah, that's cool. Dave, you have any questions for our world traveler friends?
No, well, I've already asked mine. So he and Ed look like they're having a great time. So I'm jealous for sure, and we'll look forward to next week's report.
Yeah, I think we need to schedule a full throttle talk world tour to Germany. These guys are motivating me, and we'll use their agenda.
Perfect.
Well,
I know.
cool, guys. Well, great. So listen, I think we've covered well over an hour here, a full throttle talk of your world tours. If there's no other little end stories, and if you can attend next week and the week after, that'd be great to give us highlights. I'm personally, I was, mesmerized by everything you were saying because you're kind of filling the blanks for experiences I hope to have. And I'm thrilled to hear that you guys are having so much fun. It's really wonderful. I love the fact that you guys have been wanting to do this forever and now you're finally doing it. I don't know. I'm sure all the listeners appreciate how that must feel, especially the two of you guys doing it together. That's really special.
And the funny thing is, everyone who finds out, they're like, "You've never been to Germany?" Because we've been selling Porsches I've been selling for almost 3 decades now. And, I love the brand, I love the cars, and I love German cars. And they're just shocked I've never been to Germany, let alone Europe, but too busy trying to pay for the
Make
trip.
money. Well, when you go into that, what's that pass again, Casey? What was that pass that he's going to? The Glocken pass
Paul would
Friday?
know better than me.
It was a Glock. I don't know. It's Glocker. It's letter. It's what's the B? That's, I guess it's S. Glocker pass.
I'm only asking because so you're going to be amongst the old Porsche enthusiast, right? Which is pretty much your world. It'll be really fascinating to see if you see any similar characters. Like, is there a German version of Magnus over there? Is there, are there people that are walking around? What's that culture like? Are they more buttoned up?
Yeah, and actually, that's the one thing we haven't seen is vintage cars. I mean, even at the Nürburgring, we saw one G body 911 and one 944, and everything else was new. Some E30s that look like DTM cars, a lot of E36, E46, E92, or E90. I mean, that was
Why do
every.
you think you're not seeing more vintage Porsches? Is it culturally are vintage cars not revered the same way that they are in the United States?
Well, I think part of it is at the Nürburgring, it's really about a competent car. And I
Yeah.
think want to be in the newest thing. And then we've been traveling down to museums. So we haven't but I'm hoping when we get to Black Forest, Austria, especially, maybe there's people out there doing the things we do, which is driving vintage cars in the twisty roads. So
It might be the inspections too.
yeah,
I think what your dad just said is right because in Japan, aren't the cars almost impossible? I mean, you guys, if you can jump in here, aren't the cars almost impossible to register when they're a certain age? And that's the reason a lot of the cool old Porsches are coming in from Japan that are being resold in the United States. True or false?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm
Casey,
not
do you
sure.
know?
I mean, I know that, a couple of the cars that I care for were Mizwa cars, which were
Yep.
originally Japanese imports, two Carrera RSs and a 968 Club Sport. And I just think I think they're worth more money in the United States market than they are in Japan. So they see the opportunity for profitability and send them this way.
Yeah.
I really do think there's some sort of governmental interference that makes it so that those cars are very hard to keep on the road or something like that.
Well, I think in Japan, I think having these type of luxury goods is more of a status symbol.
Mm.
Driving them, I think in Japan, if they want to drive, they're probably driving Skylines and things that are maybe better suited for their roads. I think here in Germany, what my dad was mentioning is I think to get them to be legal and past their inspection is much harder. So, and they're much more expensive here to maintain and so forth. So I think also we've been traveling. We were in Nürburgring during the weekend. We've been only here during the week. I don't think people are driving around. We saw one 80s Mercedes SL, hardtop. That was it. I got so excited, and it was going too slow for me because I had to stop from 250 kilometers to 210, and it was still going too slow to
A
actually.
129 is what those were. I think that's
Yeah.
the chassis
Yeah,
number.
129, 129. Yeah.
So last silly question. When we were in Italy last year, and really most of Europe except for Germany, all you saw were German cars and freaking Audis everywhere. The Italians love Audis, but you know what the Italians weren't driving? Italian cars.
They wanted to get there.
They weren't driving Italian cars. And it's like, where's the Alpha? Where are the,
Oh, I
the
know.
things? And so in Germany, I am going to venture a guess that to see anything else other than a German car is probably odd.
Very, a lot of Skodas. I guess Skodas are Czech.
But aren't they sort of VAG equivalent or VAG adjacent though? Aren't
Yeah,
that
because
owned by
is, yeah.
Volkswagen?
very,
Yeah.
every time I see one, I take a double take because I think it's a Volkswagen. It looks very,
Yeah.
very similar to Volkswagen.
And they said they
We
were
saw
part
some
of
Volvos, a handful of Volvos, not a lot. Oh, we
Dodge truck.
saw a Dodge Ram truck, which looked ridiculous. It was in there, it was outside of Nürburgring on those tiny roads. We saw a Dodge Charger. We saw 2 or 3 Mustang GTs on the Nürburgring track. And talking to our friend, as guy David, who we met on Sunday, he's like, he's a British guy, lives in Germany, has a Mustang GT, which he says has about 20 less horsepower than the US ones because of emissions. And it's German registered. It's in, it's got German plates. And he's like, I just tired of looking at the same freaking Audis, BMWs, Volkswagens. It is literally Audi, Volkswagen, BMW everywhere, and everything. Today, when I go on the freeway, I'll take some more video and you'll see it is so boring. Everyone goes the same speed, which is, I appreciate. Everything is a black, small to mid-sized compact sedan, station wagon, estate. Yeah, that's it.
So
Yeah.
I've got a good two good friends that live in Stuttgart, and they have a 996 C4S and a 968 Club Sport, and they're bringing over they're Americans. They're bringing over a 944 turbo. I'll ask them about the lack of older cars. I remember that when we were over there, they probably told me, but I had drank so much great beer when I was over there that I really can't remember. But I will figure that out, and next time I'm on, I'll pass it along.
Yeah, please do. And hopefully this weekend, I mean, the FLB, which I guess I would equate it to, is the Porsche factory employees that are like our group members, early hot rod 911s. I am hoping to see great things Thursday.
That's going to be
All night.
awesome.
So
That is going to be awesome. That is going to be amazing. But Paul, make sure you get into it. Find out what they're doing at the motors. Find out, like, really pick through it to see if look for what would really be fun is if you were to discover things that were not happening in the United States, that were German specific, that maybe has been looked over by US hot rodders. Like, Dave, this would be good information for you, given your Porsche shop,
what's the next big thing, the big trend that they're, because the thing is, everything it seems like they do with cars here is very purposeful. It's not for show. It's like every car looks great. They have the right stance. They have big wheels and stuff. That's because they are made for the roads. They go fast. They need big brakes, and everything is sort of form follows function. But if any of you guys think of questions to ask Tony Hatter, so think about it. Look him up on Google, Tony Hatter, the creator of the 993, one of the co-designers, 981, the Boxer Spider, things like that. Think about things to ask Tony Hatter, because I will have his ear, because I've sold him, I think, 3 or 4 cars so far.
So what does he buy? He must buy vintage stuff if he's buying it from
him and
you.
Grant it's so funny. Here they are, well-respected designers for Porsche and in the community. And for about 10 years straight, whenever there was like a Rennsport reunion or a big Porsche event, Monterey Car Week, they would call me ahead of time. They say they're looking for an SC or Carrera, always impact bumper cars. They would buy one. It had to be cheap. They were always on a budget. They would buy it. They would drive it to Monterey Car Week, drive it back home to Southern California, ship it, and then they would get to the US, to Germany, and then they would sell it. And I was like, don't you guys have better things to do than to do? And this was when G-body cars were like 30 grand. And when they got
Oh, that's why. Go at the exchange rate works. They were having a free trip. That's exactly what that
exactly.
was.
But they were already having a free trip. They're working for Porsche.
Oh,
And I
that's
remember
true.
one of the funny things was when the 935 was, remember it was launched at Rennsport. And I think there was a lot of disappointment because people were hoping that would be a street car. And it was very clear that that was a racetrack only car. And the best part is I'm standing next to Tony Hatter, who's British expat, Grant Larson, who I think's from here, he's and Torsten, and they're all speaking in German. I think they're doing it so that I can't understand what they're saying, but I know they're making fun of it because the design got completely fucked up from what they originally wanted it to be, and they wanted it to be a street car. And it's so funny when you're around designers and they forget who you are and they're just talking shit. about the shit that their company does. So I think in the end, there's always been a faction at Porsche where there's people that just want to build cars and make money. And then there's the people like the Annie Pruningers who want to build stuff that's really fun and that they want to own themselves.
Uh-oh. Are you getting
They're
yelled at
coming
in
to get
German?
you.
No,
I heard that too.
they're looking at brake rotors. I think it's a parts department for, I think this is like a Mercedes repair center too. And
Of
they're
course.
big brake rotors.
Well, make sure you're taking lots and lots of pictures. We're all living vicariously through you. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When Full Throttle hits the big time, we'll take a full throttle trip to Germany.
Well, I'll tell you guys something funny. This is something actually my daughter tipped me off on. She said, what the hell's his name? Mr. Beast, right? Jimmy, he lives here in North Carolina. And he's now putting his videos all over the world in different languages. And you can't tell that they're not speaking Italian or German or whatever. So the AI is making it so that the words are in his voice, but it's completely translated. I'm going to figure out how to do that for Full Throttle Talk, because given the fact that the three of you guys have bent this towards the German 9/11 scene, I've given up. I've waved my white flag, thus my white shirt today. But I'm going to start translating it. I'll figure out how to make. And if anyone's listening or watching that's much more sophisticated at all this stuff than me, please let me know. Save me the effort, because but I bet you we'll get an international audience that way, which is just for fun. You'd think it's all we're just doing this for fun. That we're just doing this podcast. This is just it's a hobby. It's something we all look forward to. But Dave is in the automotive repair and restoration business. He's somebody I've trusted with my Porsches, and he's got one of my near and dear Porsches right now in his shop. Casey is somebody also that you guys need to get to know if you have got an automotive. Casey, you're like a man that wears many hats, but the essence of it is if you have a collection, and it doesn't matter, he's not just looking for big, Jerry Seinfeld level collections. He'll completely manage your collection for you from A to Z. So you just essentially show up and drive. And, that's something that nobody else is doing, especially at a high level. Casey, I think I hit it on the high points. You'll help with buying and selling, transporting, just everything, right? Turnkey, valet, or, concierge level service.
It's pretty much everything that you could have to deal with owning a car simplified.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm looking forward to something like that, because unfortunately I can't be where my cars are for half the year. And yeah, the batteries die, and I don't want the mice moving in. And that's going to be Casey's job, to run the mice off. He's going to be like the Mad Hatter. And then, of course, for those of you guys listening, if you don't know Paul Kramer, he's very famous in Southern California for his, his rallies and his other things, and certainly buying or selling vintage Porsches, but also a lot of other things. That if you're interested, just go to autokennel.com. It's a fantastic site. All the links for these guys are down below. So if you want to connect with them, they're the nicest, sweetest people you ever meet. And definitely follow all of them on Instagram, and make sure you guys are following us on Instagram too. But we're just not taking this too seriously. So if you were listening to today's podcast, waiting for us to, talk about some of our normal topics and we didn't get to it, well, we'll get to it next week. Probably. No promises. We just might talk about something else. That's Full Throttle Talk for you. Well, you guys have a fantastic week. And Paul, you guys be safe, and God bless everyone. And thank you for joining for Full Throttle Talk today. We'll talk with you on the show next Thursday.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
See you guys later. Bye.